We now welcome on Kobe Manzo, the founder and host of the Division One Reject Show, a content site and a podcast. And I just took a look. You guys have over 50,000 followers across all your different platforms. I mean, you guys put a premium on, giving a platform to kind of all undervalued athletes at the D2, D3, and AIA level. I love your guys' page. We kind of came across you guys when you were at the Ferris Grand Valley game a few weeks ago, and I was blown away by the kind of College GameDay-esque set that you guys had set up there. I know it's been a long road, though, so you could take us back to maybe the origins. It sounds like it was 2020 and you started this in your dorm room. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jared, thank you for having me on. First of all, good to officially meet you guys. And yeah, this was a dorm room COVID baby type of deal. And I'll be the first to tell everyone, like, I'm a huge Pat McAfee fan. He's kind of the reason that I started doing this stuff. And I definitely wouldn't consider myself to be a Pat McAfee character, but I do try and bring that same energy and excitement to the Division II, Division III, NAI football scene in these schools. And the small school Saturday stuff this year has been the most fulfilling stuff that we've gotten into. And that's not to say the dorm room episodes were not fulfilling, even though they were hot garbage. They were very fulfilling and very fun. And we talked about anything. And like I always say, like those first couple episodes, if you had a heartbeat and could put together a sentence, like you were coming on D1 Rejects, like we just needed to get guests. You know what I mean? You guys get, like, sometimes, man, we just got to get people on here. And it's definitely grown and evolved a lot. It's been a lot of fun to kind of steer the ship, so to speak, and do some really fun things. And the most encouraging part is I'm still having fun doing it 5 years later. And I get a really great group of guys to help me out with it now and put together a sweet production.
Was it always, centered on Division II and Division III and kind of highlighting that level of football, or how did it evolve into what it is today?
It was originally just D2, so it's gonna be D1 Rejects or D2 Dorm Talk. And I figured we weren't going to be in the dorm forever, so that got scrapped pretty early on. And my background's in Division II, playing and now working up at Northern Michigan. I got definitely a little bit of a GLIAC bias. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't. But
two GVSU alums right here, so I mean.
Okay, we're in business. But definitely started with Division II because that's what I'm familiar with, this landscape. And then really, I feel like I have a really good, strong understanding of the Division III landscape. Now I'm constantly learning. Like I'm never going to know enough about these teams, especially Division III. You got 250 some teams in Division III football. It's insane. And then you go, NAI and add on to that. And I felt like the NAIA group, honestly, might be the most underrepresented on the national stage. And so kind of bringing them into the fold, I thought was really important. And bringing on a guy like Matt Schwarzler, who helps me out with the show, that is incredibly knowledgeable about NAIA. I'm a big believer in, like, one, admitting when I don't know something, and two, trying to find people who are better than me at different things, because that's going to enhance the production and the visual of the show. Now, with that being said, obviously, I'm pretty confident in the product that I and this group puts out, but big believer in trying to find people like Matt, like Seth, like Jimmy, like these other guys that are going to come on and make our product better. So originally, to answer your question, yeah, just D2, and then we've kind of started to grow, and who knows what the next stage looks like.
Well, hey, we definitely know what it was like through COVID, trying to continue to do a podcast or, some sort of show. We started a few years before. And one thing that we hang our hat on is we continued pumping out podcasts every week.
Consistently.
One, because I think we needed something to do. All of us, we need something to do, but also we wanted, kind of like what you said, we wanted to keep going with it. We didn't want to let COVID, knock us off our tracks or whatever. We had some momentum going, so we definitely understand.
There's some weeks too, man, where you're like, man, there's some weeks even now I'm like, man, you get to get back from a live show on a Saturday and we're like turning around to do a show on a Monday night, a pre-record. I don't want to do a show this week sometimes, you know what I mean? But then I'm like, no, we got to keep rolling. Like, you have to build on that momentum, and it's come to a point now where it's like, you always in the back end are like, oh, I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we went out and did that. But sometimes you guys get it, man. In the moment, you're like, man, maybe we just take a week off. And then 1 week turns into a month, and you're like, whoa.
Well, that's kind of, it's similar. I've said, talk to some people at work or whatever about doing podcasts, and not that I'm some expert or whatever, but we've been consistently doing it. And I think that's the big thing. It's kind of like working out. If you get into a groove with your exercise routine, and a vacation or a sickness kind of knocks you off of that routine, it's the same with podcasts or a show or something like that. It's very easy to get off the track than it is to get back onto it. But
just flexing a different muscle.
Exactly. Kudos to you guys, though, for keeping it going and continuing to grow. And I know you guys you were in Big Rapids at the Anchorbone Classic, and Ted was down there for that game.
Oh, man, that was major.
Yeah, it was awesome environment, and your guys' show. I mean, it was really cool to see that the coaches on your set and
Thank you.
all the interviews and everything. I mean, it really is. You mentioned Pat McAfee. You guys put on a College GameDay-esque production, and it is
Thanks.
really impressive what you guys do. I want to ask you about that. Like College GameDay recently, I mean, I feel like they always have been, but they've recently really picked up some maybe negative headlines because people think they're only going to SEC schools or they're only going to, the big matchups. And you guys kind of have a different approach. You're trying to showcase the NAIA or the D2, the anchor bone, and some of these other ones. You guys you want to, I guess, have that focus. Like, let's showcase some of these schools and these rivalries that mostly everyone else wouldn't even have heard of. Is that kind of one of your guys' mindsets?
Yeah, I think there's kind of like a balance, right? Because you still, at the end of the day, you still want to cover good football. You still want to cover these teams like the Ferris States, the Grand Valleys of the world that have these top tier programs at our level, but might not be a household name, whether it's in the Midwest or across the country. And I think there's a really unique balance that we hit with a lot of those. You talk about some of these games that we've been to in semi-recent history. Northwood and Findlay is one right away. Just a week and a half ago or so, 2 weeks ago now. No, just a week, man. It feels like time is starting to flip together. But just a week ago, we're doing a show at Northwood. They're taking on Findlay. These two schools, Northwood's got an enrollment undergraduate of less than 2,000 kids, and they've got a hell of a football team. Coach Buer and company down there have been rolling. Findlay, kind of the same deal. Institution in Ohio that doesn't have maybe the largest enrollment. These are two teams that are potentially playoff teams. And so to me, it's finding a really good balance of where are the most interesting stories and where are the best football. And when those things meet, it becomes really, really special. And that feels like a layup for us. The anchor bone was a layup for us. That was one that we reached out to their athletic department very early on in the season and pitched them this idea. So that's not to say that we're never going to go to the very, very small school that maybe is struggling. But at the same time, we want to promote a good product. And so are we going to go and do a show with two teams that are 1-10? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you gotta go where the audience is now. Let's say the greatest story in the country is there. That could be a little bit of a different deal. The Battle of the Ravine this weekend is a very interesting story. Of course, Reese is going to catch a ton of flack because he went out on social and teased it, and now they're going to Notre Dame and Pitt. And so, that's one that neither of those teams, I'll have to double check. I don't think either of those teams, Washita or Henderson, are going to be playoff teams, but that is one of the coolest rivalries in all of college sports. So that would be one that I'll tell you now, if we weren't in Fenway, we had a couple other ones lined up that we were very interested in going to, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not giving anything up for this Secretary's Cup game.
Kobe, I'm always interested in the sales aspect of things. I'm a longtime salesman, semi-retired right now, and full-time podcaster, as you can tell.
Well, congratulations, man. That's awesome.
But I got a question for you. You've evolved, like you said, from the dorm now to, the campus, and you're traveling. How are you able to fund that? You building up sponsorship? How's that all work out?
The sponsorship part is something that we very, very recently started to get into. We are part of the Walter Camp Football Foundation. We got the Gridiron 1880 Creator Network is something that we are a part of now. And so we've partnered with them on a couple of different posts and initiatives. That's something that fits super seamlessly into our brand. And I've had, I've been very fortunate to be incredibly picky about the people that we get into bed with, so to speak, as my camera does an absolute 180 on me. But I've been very fortunate to be very picky about who we choose to partner with and people who are going to fit very seamlessly into our consistent messaging. Someone like the Walter Camp Football Foundation, really a household name across the country, and someone who's very reputable. Very happy to be associated with those guys. We've got a partner this month in Athlink, a transfer portal database that, again, fits seamlessly into what we're doing already. And we've had some other people reach out from different brands and things that maybe didn't fit just quite as well and would have felt like a little bit more of an offshoot of our regularly scheduled programming. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that because this isn't the main gig or the 9 to 5, that I've been able to be very picky with our sponsorships and who we go and do business with. But to answer your question more directly, all of these small school Saturday shows on campus, outside of week 1, that was kind of our pilot show, if you will, at River Falls, all the schools have reimbursed us for our travel. And that's something that I'm very quick to come out and say, like, I don't hide anything from anybody. I'm so grateful to these schools that they're willing to offset travel costs. I still don't profit on the shows, but at the end of the day, that's not really my goal right now. Right now, just putting together as best a product we can. And if I can get that offsetting cost from the schools if they're able to cover that cost for me. That makes this thing sustainable. That keeps the wheels turning, and we can go and really do some ambitious things like a Fenway show, or start to get out of our Midwest footprint. That's going to be the big challenge for us, into the playoffs and moving forward.
You mentioned the Fenway show coming up for the Secretariats. Is it Secretariats?
Secretaries Cup.
Okay.
Secretariats would be crazy. Maybe we need to make that happen too. That'd be wild.
So I got a two-part question. So one, what can you explain that rivalry and what your setup is going to be at Fenway? And then two, going back to your first, road show that you guys ever did, where did that idea come from? Was it just like watching College GameDay said, we got to do this for D2? So one, where did the idea come from? And then two, what's it looking like this upcoming weekend?
In short, yes, watching College GameDay, staple in the house every Saturday. And that's really what it was. We actually did our first live game day show back in 2023 at UW La Crosse. It had a very different look than the Small School Saturday show that's this year. So that's where the whole rebrand, like this is the first year, I'll tell everyone, of Small School Saturday. We did do one live show at La Crosse that was so much fun, but was literally, I kid you not, us at the same desk with 3 little webcams. And one of them was flipped. One of them was wrong. One of the webcams had the wrong orientation on it. The presentation was not the best, but it was still a great time.
Right.
We froze our butts off, and that kind of lit something in me to try and, when we brought this thing back, to revamp it and put it in a better place. So that's the long answer there. And then this weekend, the Secretaries Cup, traditionally the last game of the regular season here in D3 football. You've got the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. You've got the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. The two, to my knowledge, only federal service academies or Division III football teams. They play for what's called the Secretaries Cup. And it is a very unique rivalry. This is the 45th installment of the Secretaries Cup. And this is actually the first game that will be played at a neutral site and not at a home field of one of the two institutions. So what a better way to kick that off than Fenway freaking Park, man. So we are going to be out in left center field, right in front of the Green Monster. They're doing what they call Fan Fest out there pregame from 9 to 11 a.m. on Saturday. They're going to have, I actually just got an email from one of the guys over at Coast Guard. Sounds like between 1,500 and 2,000 people are already signed up for Fan Fest. So we're going to be smack dab in the middle of that, trying to elevate what's already going to be undoubtedly an awesome game day experience. And then we'll stick around for the game, of course.
What did you go ahead,
You're doing a show in front of Fenway Park. I mean, you're well on your way. And if you're getting your travel costs covered by the schools, you're doing something right. I mean,
I appreciate that. I like to think so, man. It's been, like I said, it's been so much fun. I think every time, the most telling piece of this year for us has been, after every show we do, it sounds so stupid, but we do it every time. We look around, we do like a little fist bump, and we're like, for lack of a better term, holy shit, guys, that was our best show. Like with that,
Right.
every time,
Right.
every time we sit there, look at each other, and we're like, oh my gosh, that was our best show we've ever done. And every week I've certainly felt like that, and we continue to add and grow and improve. And to be honest, I hope that never stops. I hope we think like that every single time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it, in talking to people who I've worked on Game Day, and I know producers, and I know people who work on NFL Live and NFL Count, all these shows, similar mindset as what you guys are doing. What I'm trying to say is you're going to continue to evolve. I mean, you have your formula. You're going to a site for a football game. You're going to try and get a couple coaches, maybe some players, maybe some former players, something like that. You kind of have your formula, but you got to try and continue. Like, all right, how are we going to take it to that next step? Because last week we crushed it in Big Rapids. Anchor Bone Classic was awesome, but what's the next thing we can do? And
Fenway.
I know those conversations happen. Those conversations happen every week for College Game Day, and that's what with Pat McAfee. All right, what's the next thing we can do? All right, we're gonna high dive at Miami in a speedo.
Yeah, whoa.
So like, what kind of conversations do you guys have other than like you said, it's not your 9 to 5, so you're also working around your day job and everything. So, what are the conversations you guys have to be like, all right, we've got our formula, but what can we do to kind of step it up, knowing this isn't your full-time job?
I think we have a really fun blend because we have guys like my brother Cade and then Jimmy at the desk who they'll be the first to tell you they don't know squat about production. They have no idea what goes on in terms of the actual production of the show, but they bring great energy. They do their homework. They're great on camera, and we have a blast together. Those guys are great because they have some big ideas on things that we maybe should do. Seth and I have a little bit more of the production background of the ins and outs, the connections, all the deal of the actual production. And so a lot of times, Seth is a very big thinker too. They come up with this sometimes crazy idea or sometimes a more reasonable idea. And then it becomes, let's pitch the craziest thing that we can think of And then maybe what usually happens is to scale it down 1 or 2 times, and then we think of what we actually can execute on. So one thing recently, for example, that we've been talking a lot about is, man, how do we get away from the desk more? How do we find ways to get out from behind the desk to be more involved with the people there? And so we're picking up like a wireless HDMI transmitter. We're going to have a gimbal cam that will move around and maybe show off some different parts of the fan experience. Maybe do some remote interviews on the field, or get away from the desk and try and showcase a different part of campus or that setup location. Yeah. So it always starts as a kind of bigger idea, usually based off of a college game day or something. And then we end up starting to knock it down a few pegs until we actually find something we can execute on. And we have a really good blend of some guys who think really big picture, and some guys like myself that are like, all right, well, how do we actually implement this and do this? So I think every good company, like I hate to say that we're a company, we're a company. I hate to talk about it like that, but we are a company. Any good company or group of individuals or team, I think, is a much better word to describe us. Any good team has people who have both mindsets.
What is there any games like, so when you mentioned the Secretary's Cup, like I'd never heard of that until 20 minutes ago when I was looking at your guys' page. So
that's awesome.
And then like you think of the Battle of the Ravine, that's been getting some headlines, over the last couple of weeks with Game Day maybe teasing maybe they might go there. Is that kind of your guys' purpose? Like, hey, let's show off how awesome a lot of these spots are that people might not know about. Is that kind of your guys' thought process with a lot of these games you guys pick?
100%, man. I think for me, the big thing I talk about with these host sites is that, one, most importantly, we're there to enhance your game day experience. The people that are in that venue on that campus, that's our number one priority, to add something to that game day experience. We're not going to be the reason that someone does or does not show up for the game. We're not going to override the game. The football game is very much the main focus. We're there to supplement that. And the people there are our first priority, as Buzz starts to make his way into the corner of the camera shot. But that is always going to be the main priority. But the other side of that is that we are drawing in a national audience. There's a reason we're talking about football games all over the country, and not just Coast Guard Merchant Marine, not just Northwood Finley. The hope and goal is that people, we're talking about, I'll throw a random one out here. We're talking about Friends University taking on McPherson and KCAC action in the NAIA, the Falcons and the Bulldogs. And some fans from that Friends University team or from McPherson, they tune into the show maybe to hear about their team because we know we're previewing it. And all of a sudden they're like, man, where are these guys? They're in the middle of the woods. This is Northwood University. I've never heard of this. Like, what? They've got a really good team. Oh, wait, maybe I'll stick around and hear this coach talk on the show. So I think, to answer your question, that's the reason that we do this kind of national preview, is to draw in these eyes and to help. Maybe educate is the wrong word. I certainly wouldn't think our show, I wouldn't categorize as an educational production, but it is to bring more eyeballs and awareness to a lot of these unique teams and stories from across the country. And if nothing else, I hope that's what we've accomplished so far this year.
I mean, I think it is educational. How many people tuned in? I keep going back to the anchor bone. How many people tuned in to your guys' broadcast there that maybe didn't know anything about it? But
that's a really good point. Yeah.
They heard something about Ferris State. They heard something, like, man, because of Trinidad and Chambliss, I keep hearing about the Ferris State school. Oh, now there's this show at the game, so it can be educational.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I think you definitely are opening the eyes past the SEC, past the Big Ten, Notre Dame or whatever. I wanted to ask you, I brought up Trinidad Chambliss. I know, Ted, you probably got a couple more to jump in with, and Jared, you too. I bring him up. And I think one thing that he has done, there's been a bunch of other players, but he's been one that's really obviously made headlines this year. There's really good football players in D2 and at other levels than just D1 in the ACC, SEC, American Conference, wherever. What do you guys think about that? You played in the GLIAC, so you know it very well. Some of your teammates there at D1 Rejects, you guys played. Is that also part of the mission to be like, hey, listen, I know maybe these guys aren't going to be number one picks in the NFL draft. They're not going to be, you're not going to see them in the first round in the NFL draft, but there's some really good football being played at this level if you are someone that appreciates football. I know, Ted, the three of us, we love football just like you do. Yeah. Ted said after the anchor bone, and we knew it, but he was like, I don't want to take your words, Ted, but it was a really good football game. Like,
it was awesome.
The quality of football was really high. Is that also part of what you guys want to do? Not just showcase the schools, the rivalries and all that, but be like, hey man, this is some really good football. This isn't just a bunch of scrubs.
I think it's twofold. And for one, we're never going to stop talking about guys that go on to the next level. I think that'd be a disservice to those guys, right? And some people, I think this narrative and this ideology and mindset is thankfully starting to fade, where originally it was, why should we highlight these guys that leave the program and go on to do something different? First of all, a lot of these guys are grad transfers, man. They're getting their degree from an institution and then going and seeking a different opportunity, whether it's for a different master's program or just an opportunity to go play Division I football. Like, that's still a really cool opportunity and cool deal. The other part of it is, you look at some of these guys. Connor Neer from Ferris State is a great example, the linebacker who won a national championship at Ferris. He goes on to play at Oklahoma on scholarship. Doesn't maybe have, he played, but he didn't maybe have the year and the experience that he thought he would have. Gets back in the portal. Where does he go? To another, Big 12, SEC, whatever. He comes back to Ferris State and wins another national championship with the Bulldogs. And actually saw him at the show and we're at the Anchor Bowl, and it was cool to catch up with him because we had him on the show. But to me, I'm always going to highlight those guys that go on to play well at the next level. One, because yes, there's really damn good football at D2, D3, and NAI. There's a ton of guys that any year could go up and play at the next level. And two, like you said, and I know people have, every once in a while you see a tweet on the timeline, I can't reiterate it more. Don't think you're better than D2 or D3 or NAI until you go and watch a quality small school football game, man. You talk about some of those guys that show up to these games in the GLIAC or the NSIC, the MIAA, the Gulf South, whatever it is. You're going to find some really quality football. And I think it's going to be a very eye-opening experience to think, oh, I thought these guys were Division II. They weren't going to have the same size or speed or athleticism and, those kind of things as the D1 counterparts. Yes, there's differences. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the same thing. But what I also will tell you is the gap is not as large as you think. So, yes, to answer your question in short, absolutely part of the mission is to show the quality of football that is at these lower levels. I think that goes back to what I said earlier of there are some schools that maybe would be sweet to get to, but are just having really struggling years potentially. And part of that would be a disservice to go and showcase that product, because we want to showcase and elevate the best product of small school football, as my camera is absolutely freaking out on me tonight. But we want to showcase the best part of small school football. So I want to go show the best product every week, because if that is someone's first impression, like you kind of alluded to earlier, it better be a good one, or else you're going to lose them. They're never going to come back and watch.
Right.
Well, I want to go back to you. Okay. I first of all, this is the first time we met, obviously. And I really appreciate your passion, your hustle. I can tell, from seeing a lot of things that have been down the road, you scratch your head and you go, man, why didn't I think of that? And I think you're at that point. I really do, Kobe. I think you guys got something really that could grow into something pretty big if you guys keep pushing forward. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I just want to get a little bit more background on yourself. What high school you went to? I know you went to Northern Michigan. I have some ties up there. One of my best friends played football up there. Actually snapped the ball to Mariucci back in the day, and that's a whole nother story. But give us a little bit about your background.
Well, first of all, what was the name of your friend?
Randy Thayer.
Okay, I'm trying to think. That one does ring a bell, and we actually just had the 50th reunion, a celebration of that 1975 national championship team. I had the opportunity to interview Mooch when he was up here. It was a fantastic experience. He is awesome. Him and Izzo have been incredible to work with, and my chances to interact with those guys up here in that capacity. I do all of our photo and video for Northern Michigan now for all of our athletic teams. That's kind of my background, is in that production, hence some of the crossover to D1 rejects. My degree's in multimedia journalism, hence the broadcast portion of that. I went to Lake Orion High School in Oakland County down there by Clarkston, Oxford, Rochester. OAA Red football is legit. I'll say it's the best in the state for sure. Played a lot of big time names. Those West Bloomfield teams are always loaded. Going back and forth with Donovan Edwards and those guys throughout high school was awesome. And I was really fortunate that Lake Orion had an incredible broadcasting program from Roger Smith and Company. Our television production workshop class was a fantastic foundational piece for me, and that set me up so well coming into Northern. And I won't sit here and tell you that Northern's multimedia journalism program is one of the best in the country, but you know what? That's got multimedia journalism on the paper, and that's all I needed, because I knew that I could come over here and carve out some opportunities for myself, and I was very fortunate to get an athletic and academic scholarship that covered most of my cost up here. So I've known generally what I wanted to do for a long time. Now it's just kind of figuring out how to make that a reality, I guess.
How,
Well,
how
good
was
luck.
the Northern Michigan Michigan State basketball game last year?
Man, probably the coolest event I've ever worked in my entire
Yeah.
life. It was, and I don't say that lightly. I think I've been to some really, really neat things. I've been to a Cortica Jug game in MetLife, Ithaca and Cortland, one of the biggest D3 rivalries in all of sports and football especially. But that was one of the most unique and cool events. And everyone floats this saying. Izzo said the same thing. It felt like a mini Final Four inside the Superior Dome. It was something truly special. It was the largest indoor event in the history of the Upper Peninsula. And we've had presidents come up here and speak, and it outed that. So it was a really unique, one of a kind experience. The court in the middle of this football venue and arena. I'm up in the rafters, hundreds of feet up, taking some photo and video during the game, and just kind of had a chance to sit back and take it all in. What a special time to help try and put Northern Michigan further on the map and tie it in with some really incredible people. Izzo is one of the coolest dudes around. Him and Mooch are. They have a reputation of that because they truly are like some of the sweetest people that you get to shake hands with and meet. And that event opened my eyes to a lot of the bigger event coordination and some of the things that go into putting on an event like that. But also is just a really neat deal to see how me and my growing team up here, digital media wise, are starting to stack up with some of the best.
For sure. Well, you talk about the scale of doing an event like that. You guys are continuing to grow. I would assume it seems like you guys are continuing to grow. You're heading out to Fenway Park.
Yeah.
What's the goal? It's not your 9 to 5 right now. It seems like you really love working for Northern Michigan. You love what you're doing there. Is the goal at some point for this to be your 9 to 5 and you guys not only just do one football game a week, but maybe come basketball season, you're going somewhere on a Tuesday and then you're going somewhere on a Saturday? Like, is that the goal, to have a whole production team? You're not the one setting up the camera. You got people setting up the camera for you. Like, is that your guys' goal? Or right now, is it kind of a fun hobby,
it's definitely superseded hobby status, right? I think it's hard to categorize, but got the LLC filed in August, I believe. So it's kind of officially cleaning up some of the business end of this. And I figure if we're going to be doing this on a little bit larger of a scale and trying to offset some of these costs, let's do this thing the right way and kind of set it up the right way. So definitely, I think we've gone beyond hobby, maybe into like side business. I don't want to say it like that. Maybe more passion project is the better way to put it. But my goal and intention has never been to make it the full-time gig. If that does happen, I'll be the first one to tell you that's pretty awesome. That's pretty freaking cool that I could make that happen. But that's never really been the goal or intention. And I do believe if that was to be the case, it would be exactly like you said. We branch this thing out and we start really diving in to the hoop scene, to baseball, to hockey, whatever it is, those other branch outs. How do we get into different markets, engage different people throughout the course of those respective seasons? That would have to be it. I don't know what that looks like. I do enjoy my job here at Northern very much. Not sure what the next chapter of that looks like for me either. Trying to maybe get behind or in front of the camera rather, as opposed to behind it more so in my role right now with the Wildcats. But that's a very long way of saying I have no clue. I have no idea.
Well, one thing about it too that just popped into my head. One thing about it too, and it's not to say that you guys would lose your authenticity with it, but you hear about it with. I mean, frankly, you hear about it with stuff at ESPN. You hear about it with restaurants when they grow too big and, they lose their authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
You'd almost like want to find a balance with that. You wouldn't want to start pumping out shows because you have to, because you signed a deal that says you have to do X amount of shows per year. And now you're just like throwing garbage at the wall. So like there'd be a balance, right? Like, yeah, man, it'd be awesome to do that full time and to be covering hockey and all these other sports and stuff. But I think, from what I've watched of what you guys do, it's genuine. You guys love it. It's authentic. And you go to some really cool events. So, like you said, you wouldn't want to start just going to events because you had to fill the paper and you had to fill out the schedule.
No,
so
I think that's important.
I feel like that would be something to think about.
It's hard to, it's definitely a hard thing to balance sometimes, because right now it's like, man, I get done with the Northern gig and I come home and I'm like, all right, what do we got to do? Like, what do we got? What do I get to do? I'm big about that too. I got a group of now a little over 20 interns up here at Northern that are divided up between photo, video, social media, and graphic design that are really fortunate to have work with me and help me in this role that I have, and also provide them with some good experience, some hands-on experience while they're still in school. And to me, I tell them all the time, get to, not have to. Don't say have to, because you're going to start, you say it enough, you're going to start believing it. So every day I finish my job and I'll take my own advice. I come home and I get to do D1 rejects and I get to try and figure out what we're producing this week or prepping for a show. So like as soon as we get off this call with you guys, I'm gonna go hop on with Seth and Jimmy and Cade and the guys, and we got to start putting together this rundown for this Fenway show. We got to start, knocking out. Okay, where do we fit in these guest interviews? How do we fit in some of these feature stories? When are we cutting to this graphic? How are we? You know what I mean? Those kind of different small details. So there's definitely a balance. I don't know what it would look like if there was no main gig. That'd be a really interesting deal to just wake up and just solely focus and pour all of my energy into this channel. And what I really hope I wouldn't get burnt out of it. I don't think so, but you never know. It'd be a very different deal. And I've seen a lot of people that have taken that route in their respective fields and it doesn't pan out maybe the way that they thought. And you never know. It's kind of a daunting thought and idea to go all in on something like this, but maybe that is in the cards.
I could see it, man. You guys are growing rapidly. I mean, it's impressive what you guys are doing. Thanks for the time, man. We really appreciate it. You're a busy guy. We're excited to see what you do this upcoming Saturday. Is there any other games outside of this weekend that you can maybe tease, or any projects you guys got in the works?
Well, trying to do some playoff shows for sure. That's going to be a fun one. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, our men's basketball team here at Northern is going to Puerto Rico December 17th, and I will be on that plane. So we're going to take a little bit of a break from the D1 reject stuff because I will be, I guess, is that technically out of the country? Puerto Rico is kind of on that, like, you know what I mean?
They're part of the U.S.
Yeah, right. So out of the continental U.S., I will say.
There you go.
In terms of other projects, I think something that's really cool is that we've got schools talking about, all right, well, can we get you out here next year? Can we put something on the books for next year, right? We're talking about going down to, maybe I shouldn't get into like specifics, but one of them is like the Key to the City game, Augustana and Sioux Falls. They share that Sioux Falls area and they play for this incredible trophy. We weren't able to get out there this year, but maybe next year that's something that's in the cards, or some other big time games. We've had some schools start reaching out about trying to schedule those things out into the future, and that's really cool. I won't lie to you. That's a really cool feeling of these guys coming to us and not me cold emailing a bunch of schools and athletic departments. It's very, very refreshing, very sweet.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, that's Kobe Manzo of D1 Rejects. Make sure you follow him on YouTube, Twitter. You guys have a website as well. Make sure you check out their game upcoming on Saturday, live from Fenway Park. That's going to be awesome. Thanks again for hopping on, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys, man. Appreciate you very much.